Hi, my name is Ashley and I'm a mom of 2 little girls. I have a 5-year-old named Kylie and I also have a 3-year-old named Mia. So I actually took my girls to the doctor's office earlier today for a routine visit, and it got me thinking about the fact that even though I have been asked about this topic a number of times over in the past, I have not actually done a video about it yet for you. So I figured it was high time to do so, as it is currently fresh in my mind. So from one busy parent to another, today I would like to share with you how to prepare your child for things like the doctor's office, a dentist visit, anything that could lead to a little bit of anxiety and stress for your child as a Montessori parent. All right, so I'm actually going to start with the bottom line, the biggest takeaway here that I really want for you to remember, and that is the fact that as human beings, as a species, we have a certain amount of fear attached to uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen. And our children are no different, okay? So the best thing that you can do when going into these kinds of situations is to prepare your child for what is about to happen. Almost like you're telling it like a story from beginning to end, so that your child has a chance to visualize exactly what is involved in this situation that they're about to go into. And just having that opportunity ahead of time, especially if you're able to provide that context for them in a variety of different ways, that will allow them to feel a lot more comfortable going into the situation, even if they've never experienced it before. Because like I said, they have some idea as opposed to no idea. As adults, we already have many years of experience with going to the doctor, going to the dentist, whatever the situation is. So we already know what's going to happen. So to us, we're like, it's not a big deal. Why are you so worried about it? But our child doesn't know. They haven't had all that experience. So we need to do what we can to help them visualize what's going to happen and get them comfortable with it. And here are some strategies that I have found really effective over the last couple of years with my girls in helping to make that happen. So the first thing that I would recommend is to let your child know what's going to happen long before it actually happens. So let's say you've scheduled your child's doctor appointment for a month from today. I would start now. I would go to my child during lunchtime or whatever you feel is appropriate at a neutral time and say, hey, did you know we're going to the doctor next month? You're going to get your checkup. And allow them to start thinking about this and to ask any questions that might come up and just kind of start the conversation. This way they are aware, they have plenty of advance notice, and that kind of sets the stage for you to kind of try some of these other strategies. But I wouldn't stop at just that one announcement and then wait for the actual day of the doctor visit, because if you do really do it a month ahead of time, that's a really long amount of time and your child is very likely to forget. And then they're going to feel blindsided anyway. So instead, what I would actually do is maybe give them a heads up about a month ahead of time, and then every week I will give them another reminder. Hey, guess what? In 3 weeks, we're gonna go to the doctor for your visit. And then in that last week, I would actually remind them like every other day or so. And then in like the 2 or 3 days leading up to it, I'll remind them once a day at least and say, hey, we've got 2 days till your doctor visit. Okay, tomorrow is your doctor visit. Again, with the positive tone always, but I'm giving them those reminders so that they're not forgetting. And again, if any new questions come up in their minds, they have opportunities to talk with you about it. So again, I cannot overemphasize this enough. Just letting our child know what's going to happen and reminding them at least a couple of times leading up to the actual day of the doctor visit, that is going to be an immensely helpful first step. The next thing that I would recommend is, if possible, go to your local library, check out some books that are directly related to the event that's about to happen. So if it's going to the doctor, find some children's picture books that are all about going to the doctor. There are plenty of them out there. I will leave some links to some suggestions to you down in the description box, but read some books with them. Sometimes just being able to see it visually on a page and to see another child going through that experience on the pages, again, adds to that comfort level and allows them to think about the things that might be involved that maybe they weren't unaware of, and again, gives them a chance to ask questions and to have those open conversations with you. Now, I know not every family does screen time with their children, and that's okay if you don't. You can just stick with the books, but I know that there are families who also implement a little bit of screen time with their children, mine included, and so if that is something that your family does, then you can also find maybe some episodes of some of the shows that they like to watch that have to do with that topic. For example, I know Daniel Tiger is very popular with the preschool crowd, and And there are a couple of episodes related to doctor's office visits and dentist visits and things like that. So maybe that's something that you could have them watch as well as part of your preparation for going to the doctor or the dentist. And just like the books, I would actually sit down with your child and watch the episode with them so that maybe you can pause at certain points to ask questions, to clarify their understanding of what's going on, and again, give them a chance to ask you questions. So around this same time, another great strategy that you can try is to allow your child to explore and process what they're learning about this upcoming doctor's visit through their normal everyday imaginary play, letting them role play what it's like to be the doctor or to be the patient. And this is where if you happen to have a pretend doctor kit on hand, you can use that and allow your child to give you pretend checkups and you can give them pretend checkups, but allowing them to process their understanding through this kind of play is immensely helpful for them and again, eases them into the situation. The fourth tip that I would offer you is to remember to keep your voice light and positive, but kind of in a neutral way whenever you're talking about it with your child. So you're not going to go overboard and be like, hey, guess what? We're going to the doctor next week and it's going to be so much fun. Because A, that sounds kind of fake, and I think children see through that pretty quickly. And B, it also feels a little bit manipulative because who knows, our child might not actually think the doctor's office is fun. Maybe you don't even think the doctor's office is fun. It can still be a positive experience without being fun necessarily. So we don't want to use that kind of language with our child. Instead, we're just going to take a very neutral, but again, positive tone whenever we're referring to the doctor visit, more so along the lines of, hey buddy, guess what? We're going to the doctor office next week. So I think you guys can hear the difference there. It still sounds very upbeat and light, but it is neutral. You're not saying things are going to happen that might not necessarily happen or that they're going to feel a certain way, like it's very fun, when you don't necessarily know that for sure. So you're just being positive, even if your own experiences as a child were not very positive. Maybe you have some feelings of discomfort and unease about going to the doctor's office with your child. You don't want to let on to your child that that's what's going on inside your mind. You have to do your best to keep that to yourself and convey confidence to your child. Happy, positive confidence. Now, the next strategy is related to the conversations that you're going to have with your child. Anytime they ask you questions about the doctor's visit, or if you're telling the story to your child about what's going to happen, you want to offer them age-appropriate honesty about the situation. There's no need to sugarcoat it and talk about it in ways that are untrue. There's no need to scare your child about what's going to happen. I think that goes without saying. But there's also no need to dance around some of the things that maybe you know are going to happen, like shots, for example. There's no need to dance around those topics and be scared to address them with your child in the fear that you're going to make them scared. That is not going to happen. What our children want from us is honesty and the truth. They want to know what they're going to experience, and they need to know that you are the trusted adult in their lives that's going to give them that honest truth and to be there to support them through it, no matter what. So like I said, we're aiming for age-appropriate honesty, so you don't need to give them every last little nitty-gritty detail that goes like above and beyond what they're able to understand. Just give it to them straight at a level that you know they will comprehend, and then allow them to ask questions, especially around those more difficult topics of things that could happen. And it's best to share this information with your child in a way that's almost like telling a story from beginning to end of what is going to happen. So an example of a story that you might share with your child might sound something like this. So tomorrow after breakfast, we're going to go to the doctor's office for your annual checkup. And we're gonna drive down there. We're gonna park our car in the parking lot. We're gonna walk in. We have to go to the front desk to check in first so that they know we're here. And then we're gonna sit down in the waiting room. There's all these chairs and you can pick any chair you want. We're gonna sit down and wait for a few minutes, and then somebody, probably the nurse, is going to come out and call your name to let us know that it's your turn. When that happens, we're going to follow the nurse back into the actual room where you're going to get your checkup. We're going to sit down. The nurse is probably going to check your heartbeat and your blood pressure, maybe your temperature, just like we do at home. And then we'll sit for a few more minutes until the doctor comes in. And the doctor's gonna come in and maybe squeeze your tummy and feel on your throat right here and listen to your lungs while you breathe with the stethoscope. And then at the end, you're going to get one shot in your leg right here. And it might sting for just a minute, but then the doctor's gonna put a Band-Aid on it and it's gonna feel all better. And then after that, it'll be time for us to leave and go home. Do you have any questions? And so you might save the question part for the very end if you feel like your child is old enough to follow you through the whole sequence. But you can also stop at various points and ask them if they have any questions, or maybe share like a little anecdote that's related to something that you guys explored in a book that you read or during your role play. Kind of allow them to make those connections to the experiences they already have. Because as much as we can do that, again, they feel more familiar with the situation at hand and they're going to feel more comfortable. Now, I know some parents might harbor a little bit of fear around sharing those kinds of details with their children, like things related to painful or uncomfortable procedures that have to be done while they're at the doctor's office. And they might worry that by telling them that's going to happen and telling them that yes, it is going to hurt a little bit, that we might actually add to the fear and make them even more scared to go. But I can tell you from personal experience, that is not the case. I have always been 100% truthful about things like that going into doctor's office visits with both of my children, and they are both incredibly confident and brave walking into that office knowing that that is what is going to happen. They feel ready to tackle the challenge because they've been prepped ahead of time. And so it's not this big scary thing. And then once they've experienced it, they're like, hey, that wasn't so bad. I was able to get through it. And even if your child cries after something like that, that's okay. Our only role as the parent is to just support them through it. We're not saying, it's okay, you're okay, don't worry about it. Like, we don't need to try to make the tears stop. We're just there to support them and say, I know that was really uncomfortable for you. Look, the Band-Aid's on it now. It should feel better in a few minutes. And we're just supporting them. We're letting them know in a very matter-of-fact kind of way what is happening, narrating their experience for them, and then eventually they'll get to the other side and they'll realize that they're okay and they'll be that much stronger for it. It's also important for your child to know, and maybe you even want to tell them this, that it's okay to feel scared, or it's okay for them to feel nervous. It's okay to cry if they need to, but that you are going to be there with them the whole time and you're going to keep them safe. And then the final strategy that I wanted to share with you is one that you'll actually implement after the event is over. So after you're home from the doctor's office and eating lunch, or maybe in the car on the way home, whatever feels natural and appropriate for you. But this is when you actually want to retell the story. You want to go over exactly what happened, almost narrating what you saw, how your child reacted, what their experience was for them in a story-like format, and allow them to stop and give some input about their feelings or about what they thought about something that happened, and engage with them in that way. Let them relive it one more time and to realize that, like I said earlier, they came out of it okay. And this is something that's going to be really helpful for the future because now they have this narrative to think back on, and that will help them to feel stronger going into their next doctor appointment. Now, before we wrap up, I did want to touch on one more thing, and it's the fact that I know there are some parents out there who most unfortunately find themselves in a situation where their child needs repeated medical procedures. They're spending a lot of time in the doctor's office undergoing very intense, uncomfortable procedures, and it's painful to have to watch your child go through. And I absolutely would say you want to do everything to be able to comfort your child. But I still stand by these strategies. I still think from the Montessori perspective that this is the best approach, is age-appropriate honesty and reminding our child that even though they might have to go through some uncomfortable experiences, maybe even painful, that we love them and we're going to keep them safe and we're going to be there for them the whole time, all the way through it. You know, even if we're not physically present during the procedure, we will be there before, we will be there after when they wake up from anesthesia. So we want to remind them of those things and keep it reality-based. We don't want to sugarcoat it and offer a picture of the situation that's not very realistic. But yeah, I just want to say that I offer my deepest sympathies to families that do have to go through these very difficult times with their children. All right, friends, so I hope you found these tips to be helpful, and if you did, then please be sure to give this video a thumbs up. And if you'd like more practical tips and advice for implementing Montessori at home with your children, then you might consider subscribing to my channel. This way you don't miss a new video. My new book, The Montessori Home, Create a Space for Your Child to Thrive, is now available in paperback and ebook. and is also available now as a pre-order for the audiobook version on Amazon and in all major book retailers. I also have several e-courses, an online community just for Montessori parents, and I also offer live video consultations. Links to all of those resources are in the description box down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.